ItzYourzRadio, live 97.5, everything urban, Breakfast Club in the morning, Ron Banks at night. And we're going to transition. Of course, we had Dizzy Scratch on just a minute ago, and we're transitioning over to, well, very important race coming up, the governor race, of course. And, you know, if you're living in the state of Maryland, we're in the DMV, Delaware, Maryland, VA, and it's very important this year to make sure you get out to the polls. And we have with us on the live line, we have candidate for governor of Maryland, and I know you've seen the signs all over the Eastern Shore in the yards. We have on the live line with us Wes Moore. What's up, good brother?
What's going on, family? How you doing? Hey, everybody. It is great to be on with both of y'all. This is beautiful.
Yeah, appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it.
But I tell you what, I love it, and there's a reason why we're spending a whole lot of time out here. I mean, I just think about in the past 5 weeks, we've had it 3 times. We're going to be back out next week. And when people say, we were actually just today out in Somerset, over out in Wacomico, and people say, y'all, let's spend a lot of time out here in the Eastern Shore. And what I say back is get used to it, because that's how I plan on governing. We're going to be spending a lot of time out here because the platform that we are building out, that this is the North Star for our campaign, is this is about building work, wages, and wealth for everybody, for every family, and making sure that we can grow equitably. And there is no place that we're going to put a higher priority on getting that done than the Eastern Shore.
That sounds great. Just real quick for a lot of our listeners who don't know much about Wes Moore, just give them a little background.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm a third generation Marylander. This is where I was born. This is where I came of age. But I moved around a lot when I was younger because of tragedy. I was 4 years old when my father died in front of me, and he died in front of me because he didn't get the health care that he needed, and my mother struggled, and so I ended up moving up to live with my grandparents up in the Bronx, where they raised me during my younger years. But by the time I was 13 years old, I was actually sent away to military school because I had a lot of challenges and a lot of trauma when I was younger. When I was the first time that I felt handcuffs to my wrist when I was 11 years old. But I ended up, getting sent away to a military school when I was 13. I joined the military when I was 17. But I knew that from a young point of my life that I was going to devote my life to public service because I was going to fight for people like my mom. My mother didn't get her first job that gave her benefits until I was 14 years old. And that was a job in Baltimore working at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And so, during the process of my life, I joined the Army when I was young. I led soldiers in combat in Afghanistan. And then I came back and I started a successful small business here in Maryland that focused on helping first-generation college students make it to and through college. And, I ended up becoming an author. I wrote a story and wrote a book called The Other Wes Moore, where I talked about life's fragilities. And for the past 5 years, I've been the CEO of one of the largest poverty-fighting organizations in this country, where we have allocated over $650 million and worked with over 1,600 organizations. And so in this moment, the things that we have to get done, our ability to create economic stability and economic growth pathways for every family, these are things I've been working on for my entire life. And I'm excited that at this moment for the state of Maryland, we have a chance to uniquely build it if we can just take advantage of it.
Indeed. We have with us on the live line Maryland candidate for governor, Wes Moore. Pleasure having you on, and I'm thanking you for taking out some time your day. I know you're busy in Cambridge at the meet and greet. Talk about real quick, a lot of people on the shore, and I'm sure across the state of Maryland, would like to know the importance of small business. I know because a lot of people got hit with that during COVID and just in general. Talk about any legislation, anything that you can think about putting in place to help small businesses in the state of Maryland.
Absolutely. And small businesses are our heartbeat. Our small businesses are our largest employers in the entire state. They are the engine behind any forms of economic growth that we have in the state of Maryland, both our small businesses and our micro businesses. And they have been hammered during this time period. And honestly, particularly our MBEs and our Black-owned businesses. And when you're looking at the fact that we have procurement, that 29% of all government business should be going to MBEs, minority-owned businesses. And as of last year, the state of Maryland, only 14% went to minority-owned businesses. And by the way, that's being done with no consequences because there's no enforcement tools, no enforcement vehicles. And so you'll see in our administration, we're going to ensure that we are actually supporting our small businesses, supporting our minority businesses by fixing procurement policies to ensure that there are actually greater enforcement and actually real enforcement mechanisms to make sure that Maryland is spending its dollars, with our minority businesses, that we're going to actually have pathways and platforms to be able to help our small businesses understand what it is they actually have a benefit towards. And also being able to make sure that our black-owned banks, that our CDFIs and our minority deposit institutions, our MDIs, that we are properly funding them. Because oftentimes when you're a small business and you're looking for capital, which is one of the biggest challenges that we have for our small minority businesses, is just finding basic access to capital. You don't have relationships with these big banks, but you do have relationships with our small black-owned banks or our MDIs and CDFIs. So these are things that we have to, as a state, have to make sure we're getting the funding where the funding belongs, with our entrepreneurs, with our small black-owned businesses, and also giving them a pathway and a platform to be able to grow. And since I'm the only candidate in this race who actually ran a small business inside this state, so when people say it's hard to build a business, particularly if you're a minority-owned business here in the state of Maryland, my answer is I know. I had to build one. And so we are going to create every single pathway that we have to ensure that we're getting our businesses not just subcontracts, but prime contracts, fixing procurement policies, and getting capital where it belongs, which is in the hands of our entrepreneurs.
Great. We have with us on the live line candidate for governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and he's in. Are you still in Cambridge, right? Correct.
Yes, I am. In fact, we're going to be in. We've been traveling all around the Eastern Shore, but tonight we're going to be in Cambridge, starting at 6:30. We're going to be at the American Legion Dorchester Post 91, which is on 98 Sunburst Highway over in Cambridge, and we're going to have a couple hours, have a meet and greet with everybody, and just to spend time to share a little bit about our vision and our values, and also just why we're seeing this level of excitement of our campaign all over the state. I mean, just yesterday we were out in Western Maryland and received at the Western Maryland Summit. We actually won the straw poll in Western Maryland. The campaign that came in second, we doubled them, and we received the endorsements from everyone from the firefighters to the teachers. We received the endorsements of Steny Hoyer and the Speaker of the House, Adrian Jones. There is a buzz and there's an energy around the campaign about what we're trying to do and build here. And so I'm excited to see everybody who wants to come out to Cambridge, out to American Legion Dorchester Post 91 on Sunburst Highway, and spend some time to both, where I can share a bit of our vision and values, but also just listen to the people, because that's exactly the kind of governor that I plan on being.
Great. Just real quick, for on the Eastern Shore, it's always been an issue with the lack of quality jobs, and also with the education as well. Just speak on some of the things you have planned for growing the job sector and also establishing resources for education on the Eastern Shore.
Absolutely, man. And and I'm glad you asked that question, because that really is the heartbeat of our entire campaign. I like to say I come from a long line of preachers and teachers, and that's my whole family's background. And part of the challenge is that if we aren't focusing on creating a 21st century education for our students, then everything else that we're talking about is going to be impossible to achieve. And so that means being able to look at education all the way around holistically. It means that within our administration, we are going to invest in early childhood supports and also make sure we have pre-K for every child in need, because 80% of brain development happens in a child by the time that child is 5 years old. So there's no reason why we should be having children starting school at 5. It doesn't make sense. It means that we have to come up with better ways of supporting our educators and being able to give them the proper resources that they need, by focusing on mental health supports, not just for students, but also mental health supports for our educators as well, knowing the traumatic experience that people have gone through. And we're going to invest in apprenticeship programs and trade programs, because, if a student goes on to a 4-year school, that's fantastic. But if a student chooses on to be an iron worker or a carpenter or work at HVAC, and we've got to come up with the right pathways for them to be successful as well. I think about the fact that I'm the only candidate in this race who has an associate's degree, and people laugh and they say, They tell me, they're like, you were the first Black Rhodes Scholar in the history of Johns Hopkins, and the ring you wear is from your junior college. And that's true, because it's my foundation. And we want to make sure that every child has a foundation. And also, when we're talking about things like how we're going to build jobs, apprenticeship programs matter. But the other thing we're going to do is we are going to make Maryland the first state in this country to have a service year option for every single high school graduate, where every high school graduate will have a chance to have a paid year of service to the state of Maryland. And they can choose however they want to do it. It can be in the environment. It can be in housing. It can be in education. And we're going to do it because it's going to help address the college affordability crisis. It's going to create a pipeline for good jobs and for experiential learning. And also, it provides this layer where I believe deeply that service is sticky, and people who serve together generally stay together. And this is a way of helping to address the divisiveness that we continue to see in our communities and our society.
That's great. That's great. We have on the live line with us candidate for governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and just running through a couple of questions from some of our folks on social media and also for us here in the studio. And I know, of course, with the rising gas prices and the instability of it, is there anything as governor that you can do to help stem the tide of the gas price?
Absolutely. And, there's but so much that a governor can do when it comes to gas prices, because a lot of that is being dictated, on the federal level. But there are certain things that we can do when it comes to increasing a level of ease for people when it comes to the financial burdens, because we're watching a lot of this stuff that's just increasing in cost. I mean, we've watched gas prices jump by 75% over the past month in the state of Maryland, right? And so the things that we have to be able to do is we've got to get people back into the job market, and we've got to increase the pay that we have for people. And that means things like fixing a child care system that is completely broken, because right now child care, in addition to the fact that we do not have enough child care providers, child care can cost as much as in-state college tuition for our families. And there's no reason for it. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these child care providers, they are female entrepreneurs, but they're never treated as such. So we've got to find ways of getting people back into the workforce, and that includes things like fixing our broken child care system. We've also got to increase wages. Right now the state of Maryland is set and is slotted to get to a $15 minimum wage by 2025. That number is just unacceptable. It's going to take too long. And the reality is that it shouldn't take. We shouldn't be waiting till 2025 to get it done, because it should be done right now. When I get into office in January, we are going to accelerate it. We are going to increase our minimum wage, and we're going to make sure that it's pegged towards inflation. So as everything is continuing to rise in value and rise in cost, that we can actually make sure that people are getting paid something that's not keeping them in a state of poverty. The amount of people that we have that are working, in some cases working multiple jobs, and still living below the poverty line is unforgivable. And so those are things that a governor can uniquely do to make sure that people have more money in their pocket, make sure that more families have a greater level of support, and to get people back into the workforce, get people back into the job market. Because right now we do not have systems that are supporting it.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. Candidate for governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, is with us on the live line. It's Yours Radio, live 97.5, everything urban. Breakfast Club in the morning. Ryan Banks tonight, each and every Sunday from 4 to 7. I know you have the big function to get to. Where else, just before we wrap things up, where else will you be on the shore after Cambridge?
So we are gonna be in Cambridge tonight, and I hope folks come out to the American Legion, Dorchester Post 91. Next week we're gonna be over in back over in Talbot County, and we're gonna be back over in Somerset with Comico and Worcester and Worcester. So we're gonna be all over the Eastern Shore over these next few weeks, and actually I plan on being in touch with y'all heavily. Because we want to make sure that we're spending time in studio. We want to make sure that we're spending time in communities. And we're going to make sure we're all the listeners know everywhere we're going to be. The other thing that I want people to remember, too, is this is not just how I plan on governing or how I plan on campaigning. This is how I plan on governing. When I joined the military, when I was 17 years old, we learned something. There was a mantra they asked us to live by. And that mantra was just simply, leave nobody behind. They asked us to live by that, and I have. And the reality is that here in the state of Maryland, we are leaving far too many people behind. Where we can be some of the best tech companies in the world here in the state of Maryland, but here in the Eastern Shore, we have people who do not have access to Wi-Fi, right, and broadband. Where we can be some of the best medical institutions in the world here in the state of Maryland, but we have people who live down the street from them who do not have basic care, and people do not have transportation assets in order to get there. We are going to be a state that will grow. We are going to be a state that will compete. We are going to be a state that will build. But we are going to do it equitably. We are going to be a state that does not leave anybody behind. And if people go to wesmore.com, they can see more about our platforms, more about the things that we're building, more about just the policies that we have in place. Because now is not the time for either small politics or small policies. Now is the time for us to be bold. Now is the time for us to think about the future in a creative way and a way that does not leave our communities behind repeatedly. And so I'm thankful to be out here in Cambridge tonight. I'm thankful to be back out in the Eastern Shore next week. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to spend a lot of time with y'all in the future going forward, too.
Great, great. Again, listeners, make sure you get out to Cambridge tonight, 6:30 to 8:30, correct?
That's correct. That's absolutely right.
Yep. And if you're in the Dorchester County area, Wycomico, Talbot, Caroline, all the surrounding counties, make sure you get up to Cambridge to support candidate for governor, Wes Moore. Of course, you're running for governor and you have opposition. So what is it about your policies that separates you from your opposition?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I think separate us from the other folks running. You know, one is I think it's both a lived experience. The fact that I'm the only candidate in this race who's run a successful small business. So when we're talking about small businesses and minority-owned businesses, this isn't academic to me. I'm the candidate in this race when I think about my lived experience, where I've had a chance to experience trauma coming up. I've had a chance to understand the inequities that exist, both with my family, and I've devoted my life to being able to address it. So a lot of the challenges that Maryland families are facing, I've seen them. It's personal to me that we get it right in this moment. And the third piece is professional, where when I think about, our ticket, myself and my running mate, who's a remarkable Delegate Aruna Miller, who is a seasoned and a respected legislator out of Montgomery County, and she was a member of the House of Delegates, and she's a transportation and a civil engineer by training. But when Speaker of the House, Adrienne Jones, endorsed us, she said this is the only ticket that has actually led in the legislative branch, the executive branch, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and in the military. And so we are uniquely prepared to come in on day one and actually do the people's business, because this is what I've done for my entire life. These are the issues that I've been working on for my entire life, whether it was serving in the military or running a business or leading one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country. We know what needs to get done, and we know how to build the partnerships in order to do it. And so while it's a big field that is running, I think there's a lot of really unique things and unique opportunities that our platform can bring to this conversation.
Sounds great. We have with us on the live line candidate for governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Just a couple more questions before we let you go. Moving over to housing, just real quick. I know on the Eastern Shore, I'm sure you dealt with it, over in the Baltimore area too. There's a lot of slumlords, and a lot of times, and I don't know how much you can do as governor or what policies you can put in place, but to kind of hold those slumlords, quote unquote, accountable for some of the conditions of a lot of the rentals and homes and stuff that they own. If there is anything you can do, what would you do? And that's part one. And part two, for a lot of first-time home buyers or those who are looking to buy homes for the first time, is there anything that you can do as a governor for helping with the funding, particularly with minorities with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely on both. And great question. And there's a lot that a governor can do. One is the governor can work in partnership with local jurisdictions to be able to make sure we are doing three things and doing three things well. One is we've got to preserve the available inventory that's there right now. We've got a lot of available inventory that is it's inhabitable. And it's not healthy for people to be living in. And that's both because of dilapidated properties, but also because of things like you have properties that are still sitting with lead paint that we know is a neurotoxin, and we've known as a neurotoxin for a century, but we haven't dealt with it. So we've got to do a better job of preserving the available inventory. We've also got to do a better job of producing more, where we do not have good quality, affordable housing in our state. And we've got to develop housing that we know is going to be earmarked and tracked to be affordable housing that is actually going to give people the opportunity to be able to get inside that housing. And that's where a lot of things that the governor can do in working with local jurisdictions to make that happen. The third piece is we've got to protect our renters and protect people that are involved now. I ran one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country, and I can tell you that the greatest cause of poverty, the greatest trigger for poverty inside this country is unstable housing and housing insecurity. It's people who are losing their homes. And so we've got to do a better job of keeping people inside of homes. It was the reason that I was the first campaign to actually call for an eviction moratorium when we were sitting with the ravages of COVID, and then we had an administration that was trying to kick people out of homes. And so these are all things that the governor, it can and should be uniquely prepared for, where this is not about being against landlords. What I'm against is a predatory relationship between landlords and tenants. We will not authorize that, and we will not allow it. But your second point is a really important one, too, and this is about home ownership. I think about the measure of home ownership and why it's so important is there's no greater wealth-building tool, asset-building tool, than home ownership. And in fact, I was proud to work on legislation with members of the Maryland General Assembly to address things like unfair or fair appraisal value in historically redlined neighborhoods. Those are our neighborhoods. And some of the greatest wealth theft that we have seen in our state's history has been unfair appraisal value. And so this is about making sure that we're creating pathways for our families to become homeowners, to actually build equity, to know that you have a chance to build wealth and have something that you can pass on to your children besides debt. And so there are things and platforms and programs that the state can enhance, things like supporting first-time home buyers, down payment support for individuals who are looking to purchase, being able to keep people inside of their homes. And so these are all platforms that the governor can and should be working in partnership with local jurisdictions. And these are things that our administration, the Wes Moore administration, will actually make happen and get done.
Sounds great. Again, I'm going to let you go because I know you have that big event in Cambridge. Again, let the listeners know where you are and how long you'll be there.
Absolutely. So we're going to be in Cambridge. We're going to be in Cambridge tonight. And for all listeners, I would love to see you there. It's going to be at the American Legion, Dorchester Post 91. And that's over at 98 Sunburst Highway over in Cambridge. And that's just where we're going to be tonight. We'll be there from 6:30 to 8:30. There'll be food. It's going to be a fun time. But also, we are going to be back as early as next week. We'll be in Talbot. We'll be back down in Comico. We are going to be spending a lot of time in the Eastern Shore. And because I want to be very clear that the Wes Moore administration and the Moore-Miller administration is going to be one that is going to be working in partnership with the Eastern Shore. We are going to build a state that does not leave anybody behind. That is how I was trained. That's how I came up. That is how I lead. And we are going to work in partnership to build a Maryland that not just everyone roots for, but that when Maryland wins, that everyone understands how it benefits them as well.
Great. And that's great information. We appreciate you for it. Great, transparent information. More importantly, we really thank you for your time. And again, great. I ain't gonna say good luck. I'm gonna say Godspeed, brother. I wish you Godspeed.
I gotta tell you, both Donio and J-Bo, man, I appreciate y'all more than you know, man. And I'm not only am I a fan, I'm thankful for the work that y'all do for our community. I'm thankful for the information you share with our community. We need your voice and we need your leadership. And I'm planning on being your partner for years to come. So God bless y'all and thank you.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, brother.
Be good, y'all. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. You too. That's candidate for governor right there, Wes Moore. And he's in Cambridge at the American Legion, right at the foot of the bridge in Cambridge. He's there from 6:30 to 8:30. So, again, man, carve out a little time if you can to go up to Cambridge or down to Cambridge, wherever you're from, if you're in the Wycomico County area, Dorchester County, Talbot County, Caroline County. Head on out to Cambridge and check him out. All right?